Hello, SpongeX here, and welcome back to another episode of Video Games Worth Taking Your Time with Conker's Bad Fur Day and Conker Live and Reloaded. So, last time we were at the Bat Tower, and after playing the game a bit, there really isn't that much more hidden details throughout that level, so I just skipped ahead to the part after the Sopranos level, the infamous spinning blade scene. And I gotta say, like, this scene just really, like, has some really unnerving, like, scenery. You just see, like, all this blood everywhere, and it's really trying to intimidate the players, or even frustrate them, because chances are, like, when you're first playing this game, you're gonna die a lot during this part, and so it's kind of shocking to see how, you see, like, all these body parts floating around, and if you look closely, you'll notice that they're Conker's body parts. You can see, like, parts of his, like, clothing laying around, and it was more obvious in the N64 version, because you can actually see part of, like, his head laying around, like, his head split open, and it's pretty disturbing. So, it's like this part is trying to taunt you for all the times you died. It's trying to pressure you, and I used to be terrible at this part. I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, but while the Xbox One definitely looks more detailed, I can't help but think the N64 one is a little more disturbing just because of how over-exaggerated the blood is and stuff like that, but yeah, it's a pretty unnerving scene. So here's the part where you come across the Weasel guards, and one of them's supposed to be behind a rock taking a crap, and it's funny how you can rotate the camera and see how he's just standing around doing nothing, despite how the cutscene that follows suggests otherwise. They toned it down a lot in the Xbox version. In the N64 version, you can actually see, like, shit splatters everywhere, but in this, they managed to cut it out. So you can still hear it going on, though.
I am not a squirrel.
Yes, you are. You fit the description perfectly.
I just love how they didn't bother animating Conker's tail during his part.
Short,
For the most part.
fur, yeah?
It's just defying gravity during
I'm
that.
sure. See ya.
There's nothing quite like a good Now then,
I don't know why, I normally don't laugh at, like, humor like this, but there's something about Conker where it just still cracks me up.
he's an elephant. An elephant. You stupid.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually think the Xbox version of that seems a lot funnier. The N64 version, they had him uncensored during that, and I don't know, I think with the censor, it makes the scene a little funnier. I mean, there are some parts that were funnier without the censors, and then there are some that I thought were funnier with the censors, but yeah, that is strange about the Xbox version, though. It is heavily censored compared to the N64 version. Yeah, how strange is that? An Xbox game that's more censored than a Nintendo game. I mean, I can believe that coming from Sony nowadays because of how ridiculous they've gotten, but Microsoft, usually Microsoft is the king of making edgier video games. This part is broken as heck. These dinosaurs don't even have a pattern. They just run around randomly, and you just gotta hope that you don't run into them. Yeah, Conker can be a very unbalanced game at times. There are some parts where it feels like the only way to get past it is through luck. Despite that, though, you just can't help but love the game for how chaotic it is. I wonder, like, if anyone's ever managed to accomplish beating this game without losing a life. I can imagine that can be really hard. This game's, like, programmed to make you die multiple times, and the fact that there's, you know, a cutscene that plays when you first die in the game, and it introduces you to the life system. I still think this game has one of the most clever introductions to a life system I've ever seen in a video game. Oh no! Now here we have the Unga Bunga level. which is the dinosaur level. The entrance to Rock Solid. No, I love what they did with the bodyguard character. He looked very generic in the N64 version. He was just an oversized version of the other rock men you find in this. So I kind of like how they gave him a more intimidating appearance in this version.
Oh no. We don't like you, Jack.
Delicious. Delicious. Tasty.
My stone.
Hello. Oh. Bloopy. Conker. Okay.
Ah.
Oh.
One thing the N64 version got better during this part compared to the Xbox remake is the blood effect from after the baby dinosaur eats the caveman. It just looked a lot more convincing. This, yeah, the Xbox version, like, although it does have a pretty good use of, like, blood stains, it did not have very good blood particle effects compared to the N64 version. Almost every time, like, a character gets eaten or killed and a blood effect happens, you just see little round circles of blood instead of, like, splatters of blood like you did in the N64.
Oh, the wiki. Loopy. Hello. Oh.
Found it kind of funny how that was just going on in the background. And here we have the giant dinosaur head. This part was a lot easier in the N64 version. You're supposed to go up to his nostrils and pour some pepper into it. But you have to wait for like him to stop foaming at the nostrils. You'll see like the smoke come out of him, and the N64 version it disappeared a lot more frequently and made it more noticeable. The Xbox version it takes a while for it to fade away entirely, and so if you try timing it right, there might be a chance where it's slightly still there, you just can't see it as well because it's more transparent and it'll burn you if you get too close to it. So yeah, this is one scene that was actually easier in the N64 version, which is strange because almost everything in the remake was simplified to be easier, but I did that on purpose. So here we're inside the dinosaur's nose, or mouth, but might as well be his nose. In the N64 version, it looked nothing but tunnels of oozing green, and here they kind of gave it more of a scaly appearance. So there's still the slime, but it's not as everywhere as it was in the N64. I do like how the N64 version made the balls look more like uvulas. It's weird how in the Xbox remake they decided to just make them look like wrecking balls on a string. I never really understood that. It's also kind of funny how the Xbox version also has like light bulbs on the ceiling for some reason. Now we're approaching the part where we find the dead caveman and take his uniform. So, in the N64 version, they made the cavemen look more cartoony, while in the Xbox version, they are still cartoony. They have a lot more detail to them. Yeah, the scenery during this place looks really nice. I like all the details on the rocks, the bones, and all the little details on the side, and... What the f... Pubic hair? They gave him pubic hair! Ah! My eyes! My eyes! Ah! Wait a minute. He's supposed to be dead. Now all of a sudden he's blinking? What the heck? What is wrong with this caveman? Ugh, I don't know about you guys, but I do not want to see any more caveman for the rest of this game. Oh no, I spoke too soon! Ah! Get away! Get away, you pantsless freaks! I liked how in the N64 version they did a little singing chant. For some reason they cut that out of the Xbox remake. Although they can still get hit by the volcanic rocks. I like the redesign of Conker's hoodie in this version. Well, I mean the caveman hoodie. In the original, it was a saber-toothed tiger, but in this one, they replaced it with just a wolf. A saber-toothed wolf, I guess, but I think the design looks a lot better. I find it strange how these rock guys bleed when you defeat them. And here we have Rock Solid, both a part I love and hate at the same time. I mean, the gameplay of this part is pretty annoying, but man, I love the music, I love the scenery, and I like how when you stand still, Conker will start dancing. He has less moves in this one than the N64 version. He'd also do the worm, but he doesn't do that in this version. But one thing I can say though is the lighting in the Xbox remake is so much better. The only real difference the N64 version had was it had a laser show, but that's still nothing compared to all the different changing colors that the Xbox version had, and I still have no idea why they made these busty rock women. They look so weird. Did he just hit her? Ugh, my eyes. Ugh, it's those jerks who stole my money. I know what you guys do later on in the game. Take this. One thing I like is how in the Xbox remake, all the music was remade, but this is the only track in the game where they did not bother redoing it. I guess because it already sounded good enough on its own, there was really no way to improve it with like live instruments, so that's kind of funny. But so one thing you can do in this game that maybe not a whole lot of people know about is Conker's girlfriend Barry is trapped in a cage, and you can actually approach her and watch her dance in this one, but then in the Xbox remake, although it takes a little work, they made it possible to actually get in the cage with her. She actually has a lot more dance moves in the Xbox remake, which is strange, because in the N64 versions, like Conker had more dance moves, so it's kind of funny how they reversed it in the Xbox remake. Now Barry's the one with more moves, and Conker's the one who has less moves. Love the music. The laser show, one thing that is absent in the Xbox remake. Hubba, hubba, hubba. Conker, you were one lucky son of a... What is it with Rare? They somehow know how to make animal characters attractive. Okay, let's skip ahead to the Surf Punk section. So yeah, the scenery in this one looks a lot better for the Xbox remake. A lot more trees, and the lava also looks a lot better. That's one problem with this game, though. So many of the sections are just too small. The visuals look so nice, and you kind of wish you could explore more of it, but you really can't. And then the areas that are big are kind of empty looking. Yeah, the Dinosaur Coliseum, this looks a lot better in the remake. You can even see like little cavemen in the crowds. They're a lot more animated in this version. In the N64 version, they only had like one animation frame. Well, they only had like one kind of animation. They were just waving back and forth, and so... the only difference was a few of them were holding up signs that were cheering for Conker, which made no sense, though, because they were holding them before they even knew who Conker was. Conker just randomly appears into the arena, and... So, here's the spooky chapter. So, in the original, it looked pretty bland. It just looked like every other watery, grassy area. But boy, did they give it an overhaul in the Xbox remake. They did a really good job of giving it a creepy overhaul. They replaced the river with blood, and they added a lot of gargoyle statues, and they even added kind of like an old medieval town on the side. And I don't know why, I always love that kind of scenery in video games, like that old medieval kind of setting where you have like the cottages, or Conker is full of that. kind of makes you sad that you didn't get to explore the rest of Conker's town. You know, it would have been nice to be able to see. It's like the main menu of the game is that bar. It would have been kind of neat if you could actually explore that along the area around it, as seen in the cutscenes. I just love the scenery of it, and so it's a shame that you can't really do that in the final game. That's one thing I would love. If they ever made a sequel, I'd want it to be less linear than the original game and have more emphasis on exploration while still carrying, you know, the comedy and interactivity of the originals. And for the Xbox remake, they gave Conker a design change. They decided to make him look more like Van Helsing. It would have been nice if they gave more of a better insight for why he dressed up differently, because how was Conker supposed to know what lies ahead was supposed to be a scary location? So it feels kind of random that he just suddenly dressed like a vampire slayer, but this is just stands still in the water and drifts you into the mouth of that gargoyle. Pretty creepy, but it's fun to do if you look in first person. It's like you're riding a morbid amusement park attraction.
I don't bloody believe it. They've got fish fresh into the little bastards now. Here, I'll show them. Oh, missed the little f***s again. Ha, I got your number, mate. It's down to 2 for you. Ah, there's a Warner. Yes, not long for you now, you little prick.
Yeah, I thought it was funny how they included Greg in this part. It's really creepy scenery they added. They added little bloody hands on the side of the docks to make it look like people were desperately trying to get out, but they were dragged in or pulled away. I mean, that's kind of really creepy. The Slaughtered Lamb. Is this like a bar? Kind of like the Cock and Plucker or something? I always hate it when video games do that. They have like buildings that you wish you could go inside, but you know there's nothing in there, but darn it, you just wish there was something in there to explore. And there's another bloody hand, but this time it's on a wall. It's kind of funny how when you use your idle animations next to Greg, because the animations almost make it look like he's interacting with Conker. Like he's amazed at what he's doing or intrigued.
Yo, check this out.
Oh, come on. Oh, I don't believe that. I got you. Combo, smumbo. 1, 2, 3, put it down. I got you. Oh, come on.
Def Jam.
Oh, I don't believe that.
1, 2.
I like the details they added to Greg's scythe in the Xbox version. You can see a little skull on it, along with some little like carvings.
Hey, I'd like to get home at some point. Thank you very much.
Come closer, boy, and let me tell you a story.
Oh, what's that? Is that a video game?
Combo, smumbo.
Interesting. Can I have it? Is that a yo-yo? I've always wanted a yo-yo.
Conker's like, hey, you wanted a drink?
Too bad.
Nope, I still can't tell time.
How does he do it?
Hello? I think he's died. Are you dead?
Why don't you piss off?
Let's go.
Strange how the gun, like, creates, like, kind of like, almost like a sci-fi effect in this game. Like, after you shoot, you see how, like, the bullet holes are, like, glowing blue. It's kind of a strange touch, but... So here's one of the creepiest parts in the whole game. The whole cemetery, followed by the mansion. Now, I think the spooky chapter has some, like, the best scenery in the game. There's just a lot of attention to detail here and there. And, surprisingly, although the Xbox One looks a lot more detailed, I'm gonna have to give points to the N64 version for having a lot more messages on the tombstones. If you look on the tombstones, you'll find, like, some really funny names. And so, although some of them are still in the Xbox version, a lot of them are missing, that were in the, N64. Mrs. Peastain and Mr. IB Floppy? 1506 to who knows? That's terrible to put on a tombstone. I always find that disgusting. What the heck is that yellow stuff, like when you defeat the zombies? Is that supposed to be maggots or something? Ugh. It's just weird. Mr. Belland and Mrs. Fanny Batter. Okay, that's a weird one. Ah! Die, zombie! Yeah, I'm glad the aiming controls are a lot better in this game. You can actually jump while holding the gun, but unfortunately, they made the enemy AI a lot harder in this game, and especially in the mansion part, they actually have more enemies, like waves of enemies in different sizes, where the N64 version, they were very limited. So it's best to explore this area after you get past all the zombies. Like once Greg comes out and you're finally able to advance, if you go back to this area, all the zombies will be gone, luckily, so that gives you more freedom to explore. So in the N64 version, we have, let's see, Mrs. Icy Nut and Mr. Seaman, Mrs. Peastain and Mr. IB Flippy. That was in the Xbox One. Got one with, like, some kind of bat imp-looking thing. I am not sure what that is. Mr. Arsehole and Mrs. IP Freely. A lot of Peastains and IB Floppy tombstones, for some reason. So speaking of tombstones, I might as well bring this up as well. So in the original game, like the part where you first die and you get sent to hell and are introduced to your lives by Greg the Grim Reaper, there wasn't much to see in that version, unfortunately. It's just a dark corridor. But I love what they did in the Xbox remake, where they added more scenery. They added like a gate that says "Hell, Sweet Hell." They even added all these other tombstones with really funny messages. Unfortunately, I forgot to record some footage from that on the Xbox version. Unfortunately, that's an event that you can only occur once, so it's like when you get to that area, make sure you explore as much as you can before moving on. But some examples of what you can find there's like a tombstone for Conker himself, and it says like from the day he was created up to who knows what, question mark, and then there's like a tombstone that says he's feckin' dead, and then right next to it it says he's also feckin' dead, and I don't know, I just thought they were really funny. You can even see a few skeleton hands that are flipping you off, like they're just like hanging on the side of the walls, and Yeah, like, it's really funny what they did in the remake for that area. And then the walkway up to Count Batula's manor is quite interesting. It's hard to say, like, which version looks better, though. Like, I think the castle in this one, well, the manor in this one looks a lot better, especially with the ghostly effect. But as for the walkway itself, I think the N64 looked a little better. I liked how, if you look to the sides in the N64 version, you'd see a bunch of, like, bushes and thorns and stuff like that, and you don't really see a lot of that in the Xbox remake. But the Xbox, they added more enemies, and so I'd say the Xbox version is actually a lot harder. This one, like the N64 version was mostly a platforming section. This one's more of a stealthy shooting section, and you gotta be very careful of the worms that pop out of the ground. They can easily kill you. The moon looks really nice in the N64 version as well. I still have no idea how the hell Conker was related to that vampire. It's just so weird. Once again, I wish this game had better explanations for things instead of just saying just because, basically. This game could have had some really interesting lore, and so that's one of the biggest faults of this game. What the game has in gameplay, it does not make up for in storytelling, unfortunately. That's why I'm sad the sequel never happened, because the sequel was said to have more story elements, and it could have possibly even given answers that weren't even given in this game. So it could have made up for the lack of story in this one, but then Microsoft happened, and now we'll never know. That's weird. That bone worm's ribs are floating in midair. Strange. So we made it to the manor, but instead of going straight inside it like they expect you to, let's see if there's anything off to the sides. Let's see. Unfortunately, I can't go any further. Let's check the other end. Let's see, we got a few gargoyle statues. A weird twisted looking tree. And that's about it. And about the same can be said about the N64 version. Gotta admit though, the scenery here is still pretty nice. Very atmospheric. Tim Burton would be proud. Inside the mansion has quite a few interesting little details. The textures and lighting are very nice, but there's a lot of paintings and creepy sculptures like here and there. I think the Xbox version looks a lot better overall. The N64 one took a lot of like limitations. It took a lot of shortcuts. For instance, you can see like these these suits of armor on the side. In the N64 version, they were not 3D models, they were actually just part of the wall texture. So it stood out very easily. Oh god, that thing is disturbing. Conker, what is wrong with your family history? There's something weird with it. I also love what they did with this room right here, the dining room. So in the original, there really wasn't that much to see besides the paintings in the background, stuff like that. But in this one, they added like you can see like a few vases and bloody skulls hanging on the walls. There's a lot more mirrors, and Although in the original they had like a giant portrait of well, they had like a giant portrait of pretty much like that squirrel that was on the left. They're replacing this one with a giant creepy looking fireplace. I find it strange how they forgot to put a flame in it though, despite how you can hear the crackle of a flame and even see the glow of a flame, but there's no fire in there. But still a really cool looking effect, just not so much when you look at it from up close. Yeah, I like how you actually got to explore this room, because it seems like a lot of areas in the game where a lot of areas that are shown in cutscenes don't appear playable in this game, so it's nice that this is one of those areas that actually is playable in. There are just so many sections in this game that I kind of wish you could have roamed around in, whether it was the bar, Barry's place, Don Weezo's place, the Panther King's castle. There's a lot of areas that are off limits in this game, and so it's kind of cool how you at least get to explore all of the mansion that were shown in the cutscenes. And I really like what they did here. In the original, it was just a black void, but here they gave all these ghostly little heads in the bottom, and you can even look on the side of the walls and see how even some of those rocks are skull heads. Yeah, this place is just a real treat to explore. Once you get all the zombies out of the way, that is, because, oh man, they are a pain. They are everywhere in this version. I'd have to say this is actually my favorite room out of the whole spooky chapter, just the giant maze in the back. It has a lot of Resident Evil vibes to it. Here on the right we can see some kind of skeleton. Yeah, originally I was going to show off more of this area during the bat segment, but then I thought, nah, because there really isn't much chance of freedom during the bat segment, because you're constantly getting hunted down by villagers that are trying to shoot you. So it makes it a lot harder to explore, although you get to reach areas that are harder to reach when compared to like being on foot as Conker. But I like the little detail they added here, though. You see the glowing red eyes. In the original game, they did have those, but they weren't glowing red. They were just part of they were gray, just like the statue. So it's kind of cool how in this one they made it look like there might be something back there. All the details they added with the vines, and just a very gothic, atmospheric looking area. The red glow they added in certain areas is a nice touch as well. One thing I wasn't aware, I wasn't even aware you could actually jump up on the hedges. I always figured it would have like had some kind of invisible barrier that prevented you from going up there. But I noticed how as you run along it, you'll actually notice like some leaves like flying through the air as Conker runs by. They're miscolored though, but it's still a neat little detail. I remember when I first did that, I was like, what the heck is that? And then I went back, it's like, oh, those are the leaves. Would have made more sense if they colored them green looking. They look a little too dead. They don't match the rest of them, but still a pretty neat touch. So after that, if you go back to Wendy, it will be nighttime still. And, so what's strange though is how, in the N64 version, it allows you to backtrack it through certain areas. And you'll notice how, like in the Xbox version, a lot of them are sealed off. Which is kind of strange. So in the N64 version, revisiting some areas, it actually did allow you to see them in a nighttime setting, but the Xbox not so much. So I think now would be a good point to show the differences between the day and night cycles of certain areas. I'll show you like which ones have a day cycle and which ones don't. Well, the context sensitive still works in this area. But first I'll get the Xbox One areas out. Well, I mean the Xbox Remake areas out of the way first. So for some reason the Barn Boys chapter is sealed off. as is the Poo Lodge. But strangely enough, you can still go inside the Poo Lodge, though, by going inside the Great Mighty Poo's lair. And so one thing I honestly did not know about is, so you can actually trigger this cutscene at
Get the
night,
impression somebody
where
doesn't
originally
want
I
me to
thought
be
this
here.
cutscene
They
could only
certainly
be
don't want me to
triggered
go that
earlier
way.
in the game.
Can
But
go
yeah,
that
if you
way.
actually go to chapter select and go to like the It's War chapter, but wander off to this area, it'll actually show
Is
this
it safe,
cutscene
I
at night
wonder?
instead of daytime. So that's kind of interesting.
Let's find out.
Now I already knew you could go to this area later on in the game though, because you know, this is the entrance to the final level after all. But I didn't know this cutscene could be played at night as well, so that's kind of interesting.
Uh-oh. I think it's about to... Oh. Ah, heck. Doesn't like I'm going that way just yet.
And apparently that cutscene can also occur at night during the N64 version as well. Ooh, the sky looks interesting at night. Then, let's see. Accidentally hurt myself somehow. So, will the entrance to the Bat Tower have a nighttime segment as well? Let's find out. No, it does not, surprisingly. How strange is that?
Tasty.
And yeah, it's still nighttime here. How strange is that? That's one thing that always confused me. If this is supposed to be the wasp home, then why does it resemble like a beehive? Why is there so much honey in the wasp lair? It would have made more sense for the queen bee to live there. Wasps don't make honey, they make wax. So I always wondered, like, what would happen if you tried going back to the haunted chapter, well, the spooky chapter, and apparently it's sealed off. Makes sense though, because when Conker first entered that area, he got blocked off by a bunch of rocks. So, kind of makes sense that they had blocked that area off. What are those windmill blades made of? They look so shiny for what's supposed to be cloth, basically, but I do like how they gave them a bit of motion though. Usually when games have like a spinning windmill, usually they look stiff as heck, like in the N64 version. So yeah, the fact that they actually gave it some animation is quite a nice touch. So here's a little bit of the entrance to the war level. Here's a box that just says army stuff. And here we have the boat that will take us to war eventually. They put in the controls. So there's a little bit of a collision problem. But, oh my god, that actually surprised me. So, they cut out a section in this game. In the original, there's a part where you were supposed to dive underwater and swim under these rings and trick like these electric eels into going under them and powering them up. So unfortunately, that part was cut out of the game, but as you can see clearly, they actually did model some of that into the area. You can actually see like all the floating cans that were under there, like in the original. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see that part was modeled in, but they must have cut it out last minute. I don't really care, though, because that part was a little unnecessary. It just kind of made the gameplay a little longer, so I don't really mind that they got rid of that, but this kind of creeps me out, just like these weird eyes, these glowing red eyes that appear out of these crates. So in the original, the crate said, ammo, but in this remake it says do not feed, so it implies there are some, like, dangerous animals inside of there, and I don't know what kind of animals those are, but man, they look nightmarish. So there's quite a few funny yet disturbing Easter eggs inside this bathroom. So if you, like, only in the Xbox version, the N64 one, it was pretty empty. All there was a toilet, but so in this one they added quite a few little things, but so as you can see, there's not only a little bit of pee and poo splatters on the ground, but even on the ceiling. How in the heck did that happen? Oh man, I know that purple guy said he had a bathroom problem, but this is ridiculous. And then you can even see the toilet is clogged full of shit and a plunger. And up on the toilet is a very disturbing little image. It's hard to see at first, but if you can't really see it as easily normally in gameplay, but let's zoom in on it using some of this video editing technology to see what it actually says. Call Barry. She's waiting for your conkers. What? Barry's a whore? She's been cheating on Conker? Poor guy. Well, before we end this episode, let's look back at some of the nighttime areas in the N64 version. We've already seen all the ones that could and couldn't be accessed in the Xbox, so let's look at how they show off in the original. So unfortunately, Hangover does not have any differences. It still looks pretty, like, gloomy looking. Oddly enough, it's not sealed off, though. In the N64 version, a lot of the areas don't get sealed off until the final level is open. But for some reason, Barn Boys is still open, but Hangover is closed. So let's see. Barn Boys is still open in the N64 version. Will it be daytime? Wow, it's actually nighttime. I was not expecting that. I've honestly never really done backtracking in this game outside of chapter select. Yeah, nice attention to detail, though. Kind of lazy at the Xbox version, just sealed this area off. Didn't bother making a nighttime area. Let's see, you can still get the extra 10 lives as well. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the Xbox version, the lives would not respawn over time, but they did in the N64 one. Well, at the moment, I forgot to climb up the ladder to see, like, what the sky view looks like, but Luckily, I remember to go back to that and see how it looked. And so yeah, you can dive underwater in this one. You couldn't do that in this level in the original, even after getting rid of the floaties for some reason. But okay, let's see. Pooh Lodge is still closed. Let's see if the Great Mighty Pooh's Mountain is still open. Never mind. Actually, let's check, see if the bank is... Yep. Nighttime here. See. Looks like Pooh Mountain isn't sealed off like it is in the Xbox version. It looks like the dinosaur area, though, is still daytime, strangely enough. I'm not gonna bother working my way back there. That's one of the most annoying levels to get to. Now, let's see. Inside the Pooh Lodge, though, the area with the bowl, it's still daytime. Strange. And for some reason, despite the fact the door is locked, you can still get inside the Pooh cabin, just by going through Pooh Mountain. That's strange, but... And then once you leave, the door is once again closed. Okay, so let's see, Bat Tower, how does that look? So, in the Xbox version, that was available, but it was a daytime segment, so how will it look in this game? Wow, it's nighttime. Dang. Okay, now the real test. Let's head to the actual Bat Tower and see if the sky there is night or day. The dragonflies are still there. This is the one-up. The bank vault is closed. Wow, it's nighttime in here as well. That's insane. Couldn't even go back to this area in the... Well, I mean, yeah, you could go to this area in the Xbox version, but it was still bright as day. I noticed they got rid of the tightrope segment after you beat this level, so Conker no longer walks across it slowly, and he no longer has the context sensitive to use the flamethrower. Dang, they have the overworld map still, and it's a nighttime variant this time, so dang, that's real impressive. Fortunately, you can't really look in first person when up on the tower like you could in the Xbox version, but you can get a better view of it if you step down a platform. But yeah, after going here, it reminded me that I forgot to check the barn levels overview, like climbing to the top and seeing how that looks. So yeah, let's head back there and see how that looks. So heading back into the barn floor is still missing after the hay bot created a big hole in it, but it looks like the paint pot and brush are still there. All that water is still here as well. Okay. Dang, that's impressive. The wasps are still there for some reason. Ooh, that's a nice shot. I like the glowing honeycomb in the distance. Well, beehive, whatever. Almost gives it like a Las Vegas feel. I like all the stars they added. I miss games that had all this color. It's like if they ever made a sequel to Conker, I'd want them to do kind of like a compromise of the graphics of both the original and the Xbox version. I'd want it to have the detail of the Xbox version, but I'd want it to have the vibrance and color of the N64. If they could somehow find a way to mix those together, that would be a great blend. Dang, I think this is my favorite environmental shot in the whole game. Just being on top of the barn and looking at everything. You can see the bat tower, the dinosaur level, the war zone, everything. Well, I think that's enough to show for now. I only have one more episode to show for this series. But thank you for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.